We are at a moment of truth and a crossroads. Will we allow these people to use fear and propaganda to do further harm to our society, economy, and children? Or will we stand together and say, absolutely not, not this time, I choose freedom?
Okay. Pretty nice speech there by Senator Rand Paul, right? I mean, fairly benign, I would say, not exactly calling for violence, and yet banned from YouTube. Joining me now to talk about that and many other things is one of the great congressmen out there, Devin Nunes of California. Congressman, what doesn't get you banned these days from the right? Do you have to just simply take the calming line on everything or you're gone?
Well, look, this is why I left YouTube over a year ago and was the first conservative actually to go to Rumble. This was precisely why, Jesse, because I discovered that when I was doing my small little video podcast, and I seemed like it was going well, and I didn't know any better. But I would start out from my first video cast that I would put out, and slowly over time, they were getting down to almost zero. And I said, "What the hell's going on here?" So I called up Rumble. I found this other video site and said, "Hey, if I just go to the search bar and type my name, will you find the Devin Nunes podcast?" And he actually thought I was a little crazy for even asking the question. And I said, "Well, because if you go to Google or YouTube, you won't find my name." So look, I'm happy that conservatives and Republicans across the country are now figuring this out, because we've got to make sure that we get every conservative off of these fake news and tech oligarch platforms so that we can get around, over, under, over the top, whatever you want to say, to try to reach the average American who needs to learn the truth of what's actually happening in this government by socialists.
What is actually happening in the government as it relates to their relationship with big tech? Because they look like one entity right now, which is frightening to think about, but they look like one entity. They look like they serve each other's purposes at all times. Am I overplaying that?
No, look, I think there's a lot of explaining to do here. So let's just start with the easiest one, because I think it's the most outrageous, and it has to do with the 2020 election. And that is that Zuckerberg, Facebook, put in $350 million that we know of that went to just a few states that happened to be the states that Donald Trump barely lost. Now, just to put it in perspective, $350 million is roughly about a third of what the entire Republican National Committee raised, put in by one guy that went into just what we can tell about 10 counties in the United States of America. That is real money. Now, supposedly it was for nonprofit, but we know that people ended up, that money was used to get into and supposedly help out on voter suppression. So that's probably the worst, because it's so much money. Well, I should say that's the worst on the money side. Probably the second worst is how they completely banned President Trump and other conservative outlets from places like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and everything else. Just unprecedented to ban a world leader. I mean, the leader of the free world, as a matter of fact. So we could go on and on. I could do a couple hours with you, Jesse, if you wanted me to on this.
Congressman, maybe this is the least important question. Maybe it's the most important question, but why? I mean, Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, all these guys, they are so committed and all in to shutting up the right at any cost. Why?
Look, I think it's because they're part of this. They're totalitarians. They want power. These are some of the richest, not only if it's companies, they're definitely the richest companies in the history of the United States. But also they're bigger than most countries. The amount of money and the revenue and the gold they have are bigger than some of the biggest empires in the history of the world in today's dollars. So this is all about totalitarian control. They love having the socialists like Pelosi, like Newsom in charge, because they know they can go write a $350 million check and buy them. Because these are companies that have become, they're really, I call them oligarchs, they're monopolies. In order for them to keep their gold and treasure and their monopoly on people, they want to have a relationship with a socialist government. That's what's really going on here. And I think the American people are slowly figuring it out, but it takes a lot of work to get that message out to people.
Congressman, there are a lot of scary, dangerous things going on in the country right now. I've argued there's nothing more dangerous than our federal law enforcement and federal spy agencies apparently becoming a political arm for the Democratic Party. Whatever people think about Tucker Carlson, he happens to be a personal friend of mine, but whatever people think about it, the NSA spied on his information and leaked it to the American media, and how that isn't the biggest story still in the world to this day I will ever know. That is a frightening overreach of government.
Well, and look, you have to go back. This has been going on for about 5 years. I could even make an argument that it's actually been going on for 7 years. But let's just take the last 5 years where they took the intelligence apparatus and turned it against Republicans in the Trump campaign. So much so to end up with a special counsel to actually impeach a president over something that it wasn't the Republicans or the Trump administration that was doing it. It was the Democrats who were doing it. They were the ones that had teamed up with the FBI. They were working with Russians. They were taking Russian disinformation and using it to open up an investigation into Republicans, using the intelligence apparatus against us. We can talk about the leak of General Flynn's phone call. We can talk about all the unmaskings. That was all the work that we uncovered. So look, we've been tasked to investigate the issue with Tucker Carlson. We've been doing that. I can tell you we have an active investigation on many fronts into General Nakasone, who heads the National Security Agency. He's a major character in this country with major problems because he's a complete tool of the Democratic Party. And I don't say that. That's just not I'm not just calling names here. This is a guy who actually went after a Navy veteran on January 20th. The man had just had been promoted to a job at the National Security Agency. Somebody told Nakasone they didn't want him. Donald Trump leaves office, and this guy gets basically fired, put under a phony investigation. Sound familiar? And loses his job, has to resign. These are the types of activities that General Nakasone is involved with. He's a bad character. He's a dishonest character, and it's scary that he's running what is arguably the most powerful intelligence gathering operation in the history of the planet.
Hey, thanks so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and like and subscribe. You heard me. Like it, subscribe. You'll get a lot more of it and a lot more of me.